Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do is safely raise and support the rear of the truck, and then of course we're going to remove all of our lug nuts and then the wheel. Do is go ahead and remove our caliper to caliper slider bolts. There's going to be 2 of them. We need to get them both out of there. Remove your caliper. Get this off of there. Now you're going to want to inspect your caliper. If you see any fluid that looks like it's coming out of this boot right here, that means that you have to replace your caliper. As you can tell, this one's been leaking for a while. It needs to be replaced. Let's go ahead and get these pads out of here. There we are. Now the next thing we need to do is remove our caliper bracket bolts. Now the next thing we're going to do is take one of our lug nuts and start it onto one of the lug studs. After you've done that, let's continue on by removing the rotor. Now the next thing we're going to do is lift up on our e-brake shoe and remove it from its clip that's under here. There we are. Now you can lift this up. And at this point, if you just carefully try to twist this around, you'll be able to slide it off of here. So now let's just go ahead and squeeze on these 2 little pins, and then we're going to come back here to the e-brake lever and just try to pull on that. Essentially, we want to make sure that these move. If they don't, then that means that this lever right here isn't pushed in far enough and it's not activating these. Now we're just going to use a little bit of brake caliper grease. I'm going to go right along the raised areas on the backing plate. You're going to find one here, and you'll find one over on the same area on the other side. And of course, we'll just come right up and in between this area here as well. Now it's going to be time to put on our e-brake shoe. Let's go ahead and carefully put it over this. Now when we put this on, we want the 2 ears on the e-brake shoe to fit into the ears that are on the e-brake adjuster / actuator. Just going to go ahead and line it up with both of those. And then of course we have to put it up along the top and make sure it slides inside this area here in between the backing plate and the clip itself. Alright, so we definitely have it inside the clip here. You want to make sure of that so this can't move around. And you also want to make sure that it's sitting into the grooves along here. If it isn't, like this one right here, just go ahead and spin it until it is. Now we need to take a look right down here to the emergency brake adjuster. This is something that we're going to have to adjust to make sure that the e-brake shoe is close enough to the rotor without actually necessarily touching it. And give it a nice little turn like this. Now at this point, we're just going to listen for a little bit of friction. I don't really hear anything, so that means that my shoes need to be adjusted out a little bit. So for the driver's side, I'm just going to go ahead and grab onto this, and I'm going to turn it clockwise. That's going to end up pushing out the shoe a little bit, so let's go ahead and grab the rotor and try again. Now at this point, I can hear a tiny bit of drag, but I definitely don't feel any resistance on the rotor. If you hear drag and you have resistance, then that means that you're a little bit too tight. Now back over at the truck, let's continue by putting on our caliper bracket with our caliper bracket bolts. I always like to use a little bit of red thread locker on these. We'll go ahead and snug them up, and then we'll torque them to 52 foot-pounds. Okay, now it's going to be time to put on our brake pads. What you're going to notice is you have wear indicators on them. We want to essentially line these up so we have the wear indicators both facing on the same side here. Let's put the top area in, line up the bottom, and put that in as well. You should feel these be able to flow nicely. Do the same for the outer pad. That feels good. Now let's take our caliper, slide it right over those pads. Push in on the sliders so we can slide the caliper over it, and then of course we'll put on our slider bolts with a little bit of red thread locker. Okay, now let's go ahead and snug them up and torque them to 23 foot-pounds. I'm going to hold the slider so it doesn't spin and snug it up. Let's go ahead and get the wheel up on here, hopefully. Start on all of our lug nuts, we'll snug them up, and then we'll get it on the ground and torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Of course, if you have your lug nut covers, let's go ahead and make sure we put those on as well. There we are. Now all you have left to do is go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, check your master cylinder for your brake fluid, and of course, take it for a road test.